Not so provocative today, but I think it will be interesting and encouraging to you. The campus ministry program that I direct is very committed to teaching students that the body of Christ is global, that we're part of a global community of faith. And I think it's very important for students to realize that we all love Jesus, but we worship him in different ways. We use different languages, we use different approaches in worship, and we have different concerns, but he's the answer for all of them. And so we take students all over the world. Lately, we've been going to 3 spots primarily because we have friends there. We go to India and Northern Ireland and Bulgaria. And we just returned from our trip to Bulgaria just last month. We were in Bulgaria from March the 5th through March the 12th. We actually left Chicago on March the 4th. It was the spring vacation week here at IPFW. We took a team of 15, and I have 4 of the other team members with me today. Let me introduce them to you. And for those watching at home, you'll see their names superimposed on the screen in front of you. But immediately to my right is Melissa Cormany. Melissa is the Campus Ministry Associate. So she works with me here in the ministry at IPFW and Indiana Tech, and she's been with the ministry now for 8 years. I think that's right. And so has been on many, many mission trips with me. And then next to Melissa is Kaylee Waringa. Kaylee's a senior. She's majoring in music therapy. Because she's a senior, it means she's leaving, and we're very, very sad that we only have a few weeks left with Kaylee before she moves on, but we're excited about what God has for her in the future. Kaylee, this was your 2nd mission trip with us. Kaylee went to Northern Ireland last year, and she is also the co-president of the student group here at IPFW this year, Campus Ministry Student Group. So Kaylee's a great person, and I'm excited to hear what she has to share with us today. And then next to Kaylee is Ruth Baker. Ruth is not a student here at IPFW, but she belongs to a church here in town, United Faith Presbyterian Church, that is a supporter of campus ministry. And also, they were in between pastors fairly recently, within the last year, and I filled the pulpit once a month. And got to talking one day about this trip we were taking to Bulgaria, and Ruth just felt like maybe God was calling her to go with us. And we do allow non-students to go with us on these trips, especially those who support the ministry. It's good for them to see the investment they're making in the lives of young people and the way God is using their investment to change their lives. So Ruth went along, and it wasn't an easy schedule. It was a rugged schedule, but she hung right in there with the college students. Early mornings, late nights, and walking all over Bulgaria. So she did great, and we were glad to have her with us. Then on the far end is another student. This is Casey Wurst. Casey, you're a sophomore?
Freshman.
Freshman. Oh my gosh. You seem older than that. Casey is an elementary ed major here at IPFW, and this obviously was her first mission trip with campus ministry, but we hope it won't be her last. So we're actually headed to India next March, so we'll begin the recruitment process. Today I'm just going to ask some questions, and the ladies are going to respond to those questions, and I would just want to say, don't feel like you have to respond to all 4 of you don't have to answer all questions. And then when they start to talk about something that I have video for from the trip, I might pause them and play a little video for you. Now I will say that when I play the video, it's going to be silent. There's not going to be any sound. And the reason for that is that there's a wonderful bed of music under most of this video, but it makes it easier for the CATV people to edit it and put it on television if there's no sound coming out of the computer here in the room. So my apologies to anybody who's in the room that wants to hear the music. I'm happy to play it for you some other time, or you can come to our annual dinner and you'll get to hear the music at the annual dinner. So anyway, Why don't we begin by just maybe having whoever wants to respond explain why you decided to go on this trip in the first place? Besides the fact that it's your job and you have to go. What is it about going to Bulgaria or our partnership there that intrigued you enough to make the sacrifice to spend a week and spend the money to go?
I just really wanted to see what it was like. All of my life, I've been raised in a Christian atmosphere all my life, and I'd heard so many stories of people going on mission trips and being so excited about what they saw and what different perspectives on life, whether it be a simple thing or something life-changing. So I really wanted to experience what they were talking about, get out of the little Christian bubble that I was used to, and experience a different culture, and how Christians in the body of Christ worked in a different part of the world. And I'm really glad that I decided to go. I learned a lot of things that I wasn't expecting to, and it was everything and more than I expected.
I had gone to Ireland, like you said, a year ago, but that's a different type of missions trip. Like all these different missions trips that campus ministry goes on, they're all very different in lots of different ways. But Ireland didn't have that language barrier or the poverty necessarily that we didn't see. And I grew a lot in Ireland, but I felt like there was just something more that I needed to experience or something. And so going and seeing a completely different culture with completely different language, and it just really impacts you in a completely different way. So that was really cool to see.
Well, it was kind of a lightning strike by God that caused me to walk up to Ben and say, is there room for another adult on this trip? Because I had been to Israel a number of times. My daughter lived there for a few years, and so I had been to a culture with various customs and different languages and everything, but it was just like, I don't know, it truly was a calling. And I'm just now beginning to figure out what special function I served, maybe. Shall I say that, the function? Is that several of the students walked up to me and said, well, my mom would never do this, or my father would be complaining every step of the way. And so I hope that I modeled that no matter how old you are, you can continue making bold choices and continue testifying and doing missionary work as long as you're healthy and you have the means to do it. So this was an unexpected opportunity. That's what I usually call it, is my unexpected opportunity that God put in my hands. And it was an amazing experience.
Melissa, why don't you, as kind of a segue, explain who we work with in Bulgaria and the focus of their ministry and so forth.
Sure, and that was a big part of why I was excited to go back this time, is because this is my third trip back to Bulgaria, and each time we go back, it's more and more exciting because you become better friends with the people that you work with, and you have more experiences and more memories with them, and you get to know them better. So we work with Care for All Ministries they're kind of based out of Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria, and the leader of that ministry is Dinko Zlatarov, and his wife is named Pecha. And they basically care for all, which is the name of their ministry, and they reach out to the Roma people of Bulgaria. And these people are very overlooked, discriminated against, and not cared for in their society. And they make a point to plant churches and care for the people in those ghettos. Basically, is where they live. They're in basically ghettos, and they live in very different circumstances than what they would call the white Bulgarian people, and they just have such a heart for their people, well, actually, they're not Roma themselves, but they have such a heart to reach the Roma people and to see them reached for Christ and to see their lives turned, that they wouldn't be destined, that the children especially wouldn't be destined to live in the same kind of poverty that they've grown up in. So to bring hope to them.
And in case there's somebody watching that's not familiar with the word Roma, we in the United States call them gypsies. At times, it's the largest ethnic group in Eastern Europe. There are about 12 million Roma people living in Eastern Europe. We actually did a forum on the Roma people last year. Some people watching might have seen that. But the discrimination against this group goes all way back, centuries and centuries. A lot of people don't realize that Hitler and the Nazis killed about 1 million gypsies in the concentration camps before and during World War II. And as Melissa pointed out, sadly, they're still very much discriminated against. Although I think in Bulgaria it's gotten a little better, actually, in the last 3 years. Since we were last in Bulgaria, but still, nevertheless, they face incredible challenges economically and in terms of social services and so forth. So, okay. So, what would you like to talk about? Would you like to talk about distributing? We did a host of different kinds of ministry activities while we were there. We distributed food, we did kids' fests, we conducted English lessons, we joined in worship services. And I think what I'm going to do, and I'm going to ask you all to resist the temptation to turn around and look. You can watch later. But if you'll we'll pick a topic to talk about, and then I will play a video of the team doing what they're talking about behind them, so that the people here can watch. And then at home, I assume that Bernie will probably edit the video in, and you all will be talking over the video on TV. So what would you like to talk about first? Anybody have a preference?
Let's do the Kids Fest, because that was my
Kids
favorite.
Fest. Okay. We did 2 of these, one on a Tuesday, I think, or Monday. It was a Monday. Was it Monday, I think?
No idea.
No, it was a Tuesday. It was a
together.
Tuesday. We did one on a Tuesday and one on a Thursday in 2 different towns, Maglish on Tuesday and Gorno Alexandrovo on Thursday. And I'm going to show some footage from the first one on Tuesday. But why don't you all just take turns explaining A, what we did, and B, how you saw God work in that particular activity, and maybe how God touched your heart through that activity. And I'll start the video.
Okay, I'll start. First off, we kind of didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. 2 or 3 of the members of our team had been there before and knew what a Kids Fest was, and we had kind of been told some things we could do, but there was no given instructions. So we kind of got there, and we didn't really see any kids at that point. But as soon as we all got out of the truck and started pulling out, started setting up cotton candy and popcorn, we had some face paint, and all of a sudden there was 100 kids there. And so we as a team, what really impressed me is we all worked together really well, and we all kind of just found our niche, whether that was grabbing some face paint and starting to do that. Some people went right to the popcorn and the cotton candy, helping out with that. A couple, there were some older kids that was kind of stood around in the back, so a couple people went and talked to them. So it worked out really well, and it was just so cool to see that even though there was a language barrier and we couldn't interact with them, and even the way they shook their head, yes and no, is the opposite of what we do. So you're like, face paint? And they're like, and you're like, I don't know what that means, but okay. But even though there was a language barrier, we couldn't talk to them. They still hung around with us, and they wanted to be with us, and they wanted to talk to us. They wanted to interact with us, even though we couldn't actually use words.
Parenthetically, let me just add that the Roma people originated, they left India in the 5th century. The the 10th century AD. And so, like Indian people, if you've ever met them, a yes is like this. And so it's like Kaylee said, it's a little confusing.
And sometimes it's both.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that you can see the relationship to India even now in the way that the Roman people respond to questions. So, who else?
At one of the festivals, I bagged the popcorn, and it kept me busy the whole time. And it's absolutely amazing what a little bag of popcorn will do for a child. And it drives home this overwhelming poverty that they live in day to day, that a little tiny sack of popcorn could bring so much joy to their hearts. And in contrast to our kids being disappointed at the toy they get at McDonald's, or because they didn't get exactly what they wanted for their Christmas or birthday, but they were truly overjoyed that they got to have some popcorn that day. And it was a rainy day at one particular time. And so it was kind of fun to do it in the rain. It was a special kind of joy where you could see that the weather didn't matter, they were just all having fun, that here were these strange people coming and bringing some fun into their lives. And then the first kids festival, a small children's class from my own church decided they wanted to send a token to the Roma kids. So I found some tiny plastic fish at a novelty store and distributed little bags of fish to the team members. And I was passing them out and wanted to give just one to each child so that there would be more fish left for other kids, And one little boy came up and just had to have that fish, And so I usually had several that I would hold up and let him choose just one. So away he went with his fish. And pretty soon he came back and he was like this again, And I said, no, one fish, And oh, he didn't know what I was talking about. And I said, one fish. And I said, where is your fish? Knowing that he did not understand a word I was saying. And I went like this, and he went like this, and he said, he wanted another fish. So this little tiny plastic fish, a token, meant so much to him. It was such a treat. And it just drives home the poverty that these particular people live in day to day. And that's visualized in the rocks that were holding shingles down on their roofs, and the fact that, they had outdoor bathroom facilities and so forth, no running water. So that was a very wonderful and yet touching experience for me, that the kids got such a kick out of such tiny, tiny gifts.
Yeah. Kids Fest was definitely one of my favorite parts of the trip. It's probably because I'm also an elementary ed major, so kids are kind of my forte. I love being around them. And the thing that impressed me the most was just the communication that we were able to have with the kids, and even with the older kids that were there, and getting them involved. Most of the time we didn't know what they wanted or needed, but for simple things, as in, do you want your face painted, or do you want your hair done? There was one girl, she was fantastic at, making braids, and the girls got such a kick out of that. I mean, you could tell they just felt beautiful. They painted their nails. It was really sweet. And I just thought it was incredible to see how we were still able to communicate, we're here for you. We're here to love on you and to show you that you matter to Jesus, and so you matter to us. And it was really, really neat. It was really special. And I had fun doing face paint for the majority of it. And I thought it was really neat to see the connections that the kids had with each other and how they looked out for one another. For the younger kids, they'd come up and they'd get their face painted. Or if an older kid would get up and get their face painted, they made sure that they went and got every other kid that they knew and drug them over to me so that they could get the same exact thing. Or I was painting, I think the only thing I know how to draw it's like hearts and butterflies, and sometimes butterflies, on a good day. But they didn't care. They just wanted
Attention.
the attention. Exactly. Thank you. And it was great. At one of the places, I was kneeling on the grass, and I was literally just going around in a circle because there was a swarm of kids, and they just kept coming and asking for more drawings, and I just thought it was sweet.
I see some of these things from a little bit of a different perspective as one of the leaders of the trip, and so I'm constantly watching how the team members are just interacting. And Kids Fest is one of those awesome things where you see them some of them will be real standoffish, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where my place is or what my role is. And it is so neat that after a little bit of time and a little bit of encouragement, you just see them come out of their shell and they find a place to fit in and they find a place to serve. There was one team member who was popping popcorn, and he just popped popcorn so faithfully and did such a good job at it. And I think he took such joy in doing it. And I mean, the others, the girls who decided to do the hair braiding, they thought of that after going to the first one. They asked, is that something we can do at the next one? And Dinko said, sure, that'd be great. And the girls just loved it. So it's just real neat to see them use the giftings that God's given them. So that's one of the things that I love about these experiences like Kids Fest. Like, they have no idea how they're going to interact with these children and how God's going to use them. And God does so much with it. And the other thing is the boost that these little festivals, we spend just a couple of hours with these children in these communities. And you could say, well, it's just a couple of hours in light of like their whole life. Like, is it really meaningful? And it is such a boost to the community and to the church there and the pastors there. The pastors they're very often, I mean, they're working and they work other jobs. They are not paid for being pastors. They're very worn down, and they have a lot of weight. They take a lot of responsibility for the community there. And for us to come and just give a little boost to the community and to bring just the love of Christ to the community in a very tangible way, I think it really blesses them. And it serves longer than the amount of time that we're there. We might be there for 2 hours, but they might feel the impact of that for longer.
Okay, great. What was great, Kaylee, was while you were talking about cotton candy, it was playing behind you. I mean,
Awesome.
You couldn't sync that up any better. Why don't we talk, another thing that we, and by the way, the ladies didn't mention that another thing we did was we had a dental hygiene student with us on the trip, and she brought a suitcase full of toothbrushes and toothpaste. And I think on the video you saw a couple of the students. Leah was the name of the young lady that was a student that brought it. I think on the video you saw Leah and Kaylee distributing those toothbrushes and toothpaste. But another thing we did that we always do, and it's a real joy, is to purchase food that we then distribute to different families, and then the students not only have the opportunity to deliver the food, but also to pray with the family. And I do want to mention that on this trip, we actually partnered with a local ministry called Kids Against Hunger. A friend of mine that I went to high school with directs that ministry now. And they send food all over the world to real needy areas. But we took a case of their food with us to Bulgaria. Each of the students put a couple of bags of food in their luggage. And we dropped these bags of food in with the bags that you will see in the video here. So it's our food and Kids Against Hunger food that's being distributed. So maybe you all can talk about that, and I'll start the video with food distribution. What about the food distribution touched your heart? What did that mean to you? And maybe describe it a little bit.
I think for a lot of people on the team, probably myself included, this was one of the harder parts of the trip, because the kids festivals are really fun and you just get to paint faces and things, but this is where like it really hits you, the poverty, because we walked all through the village to individual houses, And then we would walk right up to their front doors or however far they, felt comfortable with us going. And then just like prayed for them and gave them food. And they were just so grateful for it. But I mean, it was challenging for some people, just even the praying out loud aspect and and then there's always speaking through an interpreter and things like that, which are challenging. But this is where it really like strikes you with the poverty that you see, and just the fact that they might not have food, except that we gave them food, which is a really hard concept to grasp. I think a lot of times we hear about that here in the States, and you're like, oh yeah, that's sad, and maybe I'll send some money, but you don't really think about it, and at least I've never actually really imagined what it would be like to live that way. And then there was a couple kids that followed us all the way around, and they weren't in school, but they were school age, and no parents in sight, and they just followed us around the whole time, and we were able to interact with them, and that was really cool, but it was also very saddening to see. So.
It was both heartbreaking, but also in a sense an encouraging aspect of the trip. It was very heartbreaking to see the rundown area that they lived in with honestly, some of the homes were the size of an American living room. And just to see the kids running around and stray cats and dogs everywhere, trash littered all over the place. And it was very heartbreaking to go up to the houses and to talk with these people and to have to give them food and to see that the pain that they might be in or the poverty that they're in. But it was also encouraging in the fact of how open these people were. They were so, you could see it in their face. They felt so blessed that we came there and gave them food and prayed with them. The woman I went up to, it was a young mother and her young child who had a defect. And she came out and saw us and got really excited, went back into her house and brought out her child. And she was excited about the food, but more so for the fact that I was then praying for her child. That's what she cared about most. And that really hit me, because I don't think, a lot of times we say here in the States, but people of more wealth than that, we think of the material things. We're more thankful for the material things than the fact that there is someone somewhere trying to intercede for us, trying to pray for us in what we need. And I just thought that was a very encouraging, a very eye-opening part of the trip, especially the food distribution.
The experience that impacted me the most was when I gave food to an individual, and a frail older lady. And unlike the rest of them who went to homes, Ben said that my family of one would be at the church that night. So I was told before the service started that I should give this package of food to this woman who was there. And it was a small church, and she was back a couple of rows, and Daniel was my interpreter. And she was sitting by herself. So I wondered, how did she get there in her condition, older? Did someone bring her and then was up and about doing other things in the room or what? But she was alone. And I went and introduced myself and said, hello, I'm Ruth from Indiana, United States. And we are so happy to be in your country. And we have brought you a gift of food that we hope you will enjoy, and you'll enjoy it. And she just kind of lifted her face and looked kind of lost. And Daniel translated for me. And I said again, my name is Ruth Baker. What is your name? And again, she lifted her face and didn't respond. And Daniel said to me, oh, she's blind. And it took my breath away, because I immediately thought, what do you say to a blind woman in her poverty condition, frail health? I mean, what can I say to someone who's had such a hard life. It really touched me. And somehow the words come, and the only thing I can remember saying is, and I've never said this before, but may God wrap his arms around you and keep you safe and warm. And this was a personal encounter with prayer for me, that what could I possibly pray for to make this woman feel better and feel loved and feel in the community of Christians. It's very moving for me.
This is actually my very favorite thing that we do on our trips to Bulgaria. I think because the first year we did it several times, the very first trip we took, and it's just I think the team really gets a personal connection with the people. There's a personal connection that's made there, and that's really what's meaningful and what they bring home. In fact, it's one of I will never forget that on our very first trip to Bulgaria, it was doing the food distribution where one of our students, Brogan, felt the Lord call her to the mission field, to Bulgaria, and she's spent some time in Bulgaria, and she's back in the States now raising funds to be a full-time missionary there in Bulgaria. So I think that's probably a part of why I just love this particular ministry. For me personally, I was so blessed because the family that I got to give food to and pray for was actually the family that I had made a box for Christmas. Now, some of you may know that we do something very similar to Operation Christmas Child, where we package up boxes for Christmas, and we put all different kinds of things in shoe boxes, and we send them over to Bulgaria and for Christmas gifts. And I was actually able to pray for and meet the family that the box that my family made was sent to. So that was really really meaningful to have that connection in person, and to be able to hug her and to meet the granddaughter that received the box. That was very special for me. So that was probably the most meaningful part of the trip for me, to be able to make that personal connection with this little girl, Victoria, that we pray for on a regular basis in our home. So, yeah.
Casey's going to have to leave us at 1 o'clock because she's got class or something to go to. Maybe you can, before you leave, explain what the trip did for you in terms of your relationship with the Lord, or how God touched you through the trip.
Absolutely. Something that I've been struggling with, especially since this is, like I said, my first year in college, and I had a lot of almost apprehension coming in because I didn't know what to expect. I had been at Blackhawk Christian for many years of my life, and if any of you know about Blackhawk, there's a little over 700 people, K through 12. So it's a very small school, a very small community. And so I didn't know what it was going to be like to come to a campus anywhere near like IPFW. And so I was a little bit scared going in. And because of that, as I'm sure some of you have experienced, sometimes when we're afraid of something, we try to take control of it. And so I kind of tried to take control of my life for a while, and not really giving God the full aspect of my life, letting him work through me in that way. And because of that, I kind of became more self-centered in that aspect, really caring about how things affected me rather than how it could affect the body of Christ and what actually matters in the long run. And going on this trip, slowly but surely, God really opened my eyes to say, look, you see these people, and you see the people that you're working alongside with, they're giving themselves in this. There's meaning in what you're doing here. There's not meaning in just looking out for you. And that's what touched me most, is just slowly coming back to the realization that there's so much more to live for than me. So much more to live for than just my little circle of family and friends. I love them very much, but there's so much more to life, so much more to life that Christ opens up to us. And he recentered my focus. Not saying that I'm perfect now, because I still struggle with that. But he definitely used this trip and the people that we met with, our interpreters, the people on the team, the people that we met with and prayed for just for a church service, to reopen my eyes and to show me what I'm living for and what I need to pursue.
Does anybody who's here with us today have a question that they'd like to ask? If not, I have more, but I'll give you the opportunity.
One of the things I know from friends who have been Eastern European missionaries is that working through kids gets you the opportunity to talk, because in Eastern Europe, if you deal with kids, if you entertain kids, you're a hero. Did you experience that? Did you see that as a gateway going into being able to witness to adults?
Bob's asking if working with the children the way we did gave us access to their parents and the rest of the family. So.
Well, after the kids festivals, we would have a service where the adults would be invited, and I think you're absolutely right that there would be more people who wouldn't normally attend those services, who would come to say, hey, what do these people have to say, who were here, and they did such nice things with my children today. I'd like to maybe kind of listen and hear what they have to say. So I think absolutely.
Well, and like during the second kids festival, it was kind of a rainy day, and for whatever reason there wasn't as many kids there. But that gave us a unique opportunity to also deal with the parents and the older kids that were there. And I think it just happened that they had all come out of the church, or they had come out of something and then they were going to go back into the church as well. But I mean, even some of them, they got excited about the face paint, and they got excited because we were excited about different things, about popcorn, and they kind of stood off the side joking around, but they were definitely very interested in what we were doing. And then we did get to interact with them a little bit, and then we went into the church service with them. So I think that was really cool for them to be able to see what we were doing before we did that.
And the video you see playing behind the panel is from one of the larger churches in Bulgaria, actually. It's a Roman church pastored by a man named Sasho Vasilev, who came here to Fort Wayne back in 2011. That's where we first met him. So it's much larger than most. Mm-hmm. Most of them were much smaller, but we had a different church every single night where we shared the service. So, anybody else want to respond to that question? Another question? Anybody? Well, besides Casey, maybe the rest of you can just talk about how God maybe shaped your life through the trip, or one lesson that he taught you that maybe was unique to the trip or new to you, or maybe he just affirmed something that he already been speaking to you about. So, in no particular order.
I think that it really renewed my soul. I love to read the Psalms, and so I just, you restore my soul. And I saw all of the kids respond in their situations with such enthusiasm that I just kind of caught that spirit. So I think that really impacted me, and I'm more likely, I think, to be active in my church now and to be more vocal. After all these years of sitting back and letting someone else do the work, and the heavy lifting, it's much easier for me now to express what I've felt. And has been a tradition in my church for many years. Missionary work has always been a strong point of our church. And so I've grown up hearing about missionaries coming back and sharing and contributing to trips and so forth. But the kids really impressed me, and I think they motivate me a great deal. And one of the things that we were asked to do was to share our faith stories. And that caused me to do a lot of self-examination on what could I possibly say that would matter to somebody else who spoke a different language, and What could I possibly say that would be a stronger testimony than what she has just given? I mean, this just amazes me. So all of the stories were wonderful, and they were my teachers. They were my teachers too. And I just came away just feeling very uplifted.
I think I came away with it with more confidence and just joy. Just seeing how like God was working in their lives. There was lots of testimonies of God healing different things like cancer and other smaller things, or people being ill, or different things like that. And so just to be, even in their poverty and in their life situations, how God's working within those situations and how He's in control, even though that's not the ideal situation and there's still a lot of struggle there. Just kind of reminded me of like how much more, or how much even He's in control of our lives, and that I don't need to, kind of like Casey said, like I don't need to control my life and like figure out what the next step is, and as I like graduate and go off and do something, I don't know what yet, but that God's got it all planned out, and that He really is a powerful God. And that we don't really need to worry, but instead we can just have joy, and just seeing how much joy they had even in their struggles, just having joy just in the little things in life, that really hit me, and it was something that I took away from it. So.
My big takeaway was probably after that, or during the food distribution time, there were these little boys who were following us around. I think Kaylee was saying how they were following us around. And they were probably close to my own boys' ages. I have 3 boys who are 4, 7, and 9, and they were probably very close to my children's ages. And I just pulled Dinko aside and just asked him, why aren't these boys in school, just kind of want to know a little bit more about the community and the children. And he just said, well, they can't really afford to go to school. The school is too far away. There's no busing for them, and it's just too difficult for them. And the parents can't afford to buy supplies for them. He said, we make sure that our children in the churches are schooled, though, and that they're educated. But these other children, we can't always do that for everyone in the community. And I guess it really broke my heart, and it really made me grateful for where God's placed me in my life and my family. And it made me really appreciate the church. And it made me realize that when we give, and when we give to ministries, they're providing opportunities like that for children to not become the statistics that they could be. And I guess it blessed me because I personally support those ministries, and to know that in my supporting those ministries financially, it's providing opportunities for these children to not end up on the streets, for them to end up going to school, and just to see it, in my face. And I guess that connection there with my own children made me very grateful, very, very grateful for where God's placed us. And yet at the same time, how can I use where God's placed me to be a blessing to someone else? So
I would say, I want to chime in here real quick. When I first became the campus minister in 1997, I got hired in October, and the mission trip in March was already well planned and underway, and I was informed that I was going. And my immediate reaction was, I thought that was my vacation week, and I was really looking forward to resting. So I went on that first trip without a lot of enthusiasm. And frankly, it wasn't the kind of trip that I particularly wanted to do in the future. It was a joint trip with 5 other universities. And we were doing some things that, they were nice and they were humanitarian, but they weren't really ministry. They weren't sharing the love of Jesus Christ with anybody. And I had just gotten married, so I was away from my wife. We'd been married for less than a year. So it was just, it wasn't my favorite week. But I guess I want to say that God showed me the potential for those trips that week, if we just did it differently. And I started to get excited about the possibility. And now that's 23 trips ago. And what excited me was the potential for God shaping and transforming student lives. And He's certainly done that every time we've taken a trip. And we've seen that over and over again. And Melissa mentioned that Brogan is a missionary in Bulgaria, and we have another young woman named Shana who's a missionary in Laos, mainly because of going on mission trips with us. So there's that. But what I've come increasingly to see is that we can have an opportunity to invest in ministries overseas that don't have a lot of resources that are available to American ministries. And my wife kids me all the time. She says, "Why do you want to raise money for other people when you can't even raise money for yourself?" And my response always is, it's, what is it? Jesus said, it's more blessed to give than to receive. And I've just always found that if you're looking to bless other ministries, then your ministry gets blessed in the process. And so, sometimes people say, A, why do you go overseas? And B, why do you keep going back to the same places? And the answer is that, yes, there's need and poverty here in the United States, but to have students really challenged and their lives really transformed, I'm convinced you need to put them somewhere where they're not comfortable, either with the food they're eating or the language that's being spoken around them and the cultural differences. That's one thing. And then the other thing is these partners, I'm praying that we can be a conduit of resources to our friends in Northern Ireland and in India and in Bulgaria and even Wales and a ministry in Italy that we visited once. Because let's face it, the United States is the richest country in the world, and the Christians in this country are the richest Christians in the world. And we have a lot of resources that we can share. And I keep thinking, if every church in this country would just adopt one missionary or one mission around the world, we could take care of everybody. So we're hopefully blessing and resourcing, and that's something that I care deeply about. But in the process, we're modeling for our students that you need to be praying for and giving to missionaries around the world. That needs to be a part of your lifestyle. And so I don't know how many of them are doing it. I hope at least the seeds are being planted so that when they have the opportunity, when they finally have some money, that they'll actually do that. So, does anybody else have another question? Okay, is there anything else that you all would like to add about the trip that you haven't had a chance to talk about? Okay, go ahead.
Something lingers in my mind. I asked Dinko, our wonderful pastor, translator, tour guide, why there were no mailboxes for the Roma people. He said, "Where are the mailboxes?" And he said, "What mail? What mail?" Can you imagine living in a society where you're so ignored? There are no bills because they don't have the utilities. There's no communication with the outer communities because they don't want to interact. There's no need to interact. That has just haunted me. The fact that they get no mail, that they are not taxed, that they don't exist for all practical purposes. They're not tracked in any way. So what happens when nobody knows you're there? And that was important for me to understand why we go and do missions in these isolated communities, that we're all the body of Christ and all are part of the Christian community. And I can't help but think about my mother of another generation who said, "Well, I believe that America has enough needy people," and she always gave to the Indian reservations. That was her special mission, But I grew up with her words in my mind, And now I've been abroad several times, but Bulgaria has been probably the close up view that I've had of a third world part of a country. And it's important to point out that all of Bulgaria is not third world. I mean, a lot of my friends think that all of Bulgaria is this inaccessible, place in the world. They have beautiful buildings and beautiful museums and concerts there too. But that haunts me that these are people who really have spiritual and physical needs.
Nothing else? Okay. I do want to add that if God has touched your heart as you listen to this conversation and you would like to give to our partner ministry in Bulgaria, all you have to do is contact us. And again, our phone number is 260-481-6992, or you can email ministry@ipfw.edu, and I can send you the information. Care for All happens to have an American, I don't know what the proper word is. It's an American ministry that receives funds on their behalf. So the cool thing is you can get tax credit for any donations made to Care for All. Now, if you want to donate to our partner ministry in Northern Ireland or India, it's a little trickier because they don't have an American portal. But because they're our partners and because we invest in their ministries with the lives of college students, we also invest in their ministries financially too. And all you have to do is make a gift to campus ministry and designate it for India or for Northern Ireland, and we get the money to them. So, there's a way for you, if you've been touched by what you've heard, to be able to invest in these partnerships. Well, I want to thank everybody. If you've watched several of our programs this year, I want to thank you for watching. And as I said, we will be back in September with another season of the University Religious Forum. And I can speak on behalf of Melissa and our board of directors and our students. Just ask for your prayers for our ministry. We're hoping, we've got some exciting things that are cooking in terms of growing. But also the students are starting their exams the last week of class is next week, and then the exams are the week after. So they certainly could use prayer on both of our campuses for that as well. So thank you very much for coming today and for tuning in, and God bless you, and we hope you have a great rest of the day.
Les personnages dans mes tableaux